From the FixedOPS Institute, EV's impact on automotive and fixed operations. Presented by FixedOPS Marketing and the What the FixedOPS podcast.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our online super session all about EVs and fixed operations. This is a bit of a pilot project of ours we are creating called the FixedOPS Institute, where we're going to choose relevant industry topics and invite on expert guests on the show. This is our first one, and we have three guests for you today. We have Russell B. Hill, our co-founder and managing partner of FixedOPS Marketing. We have Michael Barich, the FixedOPS Doc, and we have Shawn Butler of the Umansky Auto Group. So buckle your seatbelts. Here we go. Up next, Russell B. Hill, managing partner and co-founder of FixedOPS Marketing.
We've revolutionized service marketing. We'll prove it with 20% or more conversion rates, automatically updated, automatically integrated, and fully managed for you. Performance gives your service department a full video marketing platform for fixed operations. With SEO landing pages, a Google business profile, email marketing templates, automated drip campaigns, advanced functionality, and transparent reporting, all built to live within your existing website and integrate into your existing software. We manage it all for you. No logins or passwords required, and no installation or setup fees. If you want to increase your lines per RO, get new and returning customers into your service base, or sell more premium services, then performance is for you. See a demo at FixedOPSmarketing.com.
Welcome, everybody. We're happy to have you here today. Today, we are doing an online super session titled How EVs Will Impact Fixed Operations. Now, this is presented by What the FixedOPS and FixedOPS Marketing. So I want to introduce everyone. If you haven't met him already, his name is Russell B. Hill. He's the co-founder and managing partner of FixedOPS Marketing.
Well, hello, everybody. Glad to be here and glad to participate in this. This is going to be fun. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be upbeat. It's going to be informative.
Great intro, Russell. Great intro. So I have some questions for you about EV related items. I know that you're the guru in that area.
Please, Charity, please.
Well, only according to NADA.
Okay.
So,
All right.
All right, Russell, here's your first one.
All right.
Why is this topic important? Why are we discussing EVs and fixed operations today?
There's a big buzz out there about EV and how it's going to affect fixed operations and no more oil changes like there used to be. Well, first of all, it's a long time before that's even going to happen. There's so many different challenges out there with the technology and batteries and all the different types of EVs and everything out there. And we can talk about some of those things. It's like, how's this going to affect retention? Well, looking for the positive. So if you consider that NADA currently says that for every franchise dealer, there are 16 non-franchise entities that are all salivating and jockeying, lying in wait for those people to come off the warranty period so they end up in those places. This is a perfect opportunity for dealerships to pivot because the people that have EVs will be coming into the franchise dealer because they're more equipped to handle any and all services regarding EVs. And they'll also have a couple of gas vehicles as well because the average household has about 3 vehicles. So this is a perfect opportunity to take the last 25, 30 years of business that we have blown and get those people returning to us. That's what I think.
That's great, Russell.
Yeah.
Your next question. So how many EV vehicles are on the road today compared to gas-powered vehicles?
Well, I don't know if I can say exactly. There's about approximately 280 million gas vehicles out there. Now, unlike other countries, the United States is a little bit different. We're on the teetering on the brink of that 5% adoption. So mass adoption takes place. It's historical, maybe not with this, we'll see, but it's been historical. The last several years, it's been very, very slow where other companies have really accelerated. And they've run into some tremendous challenges as a result of that because of the electricity required to keep those batteries charged, et cetera. But we're right, like I said, between hybrid and full electric vehicles and other combinations, we're at the 5% tipping point. We'll see what happens in 2023. But it's not, I've heard a lot of things. You got charging desert issues. You got charging stations, and how do you handle inner city? And there's a lot of things that still have yet to be figured out. So it's a slower transition, I think most people think, Charity.
Well, that brings me to my next question. In your opinion, when will the mass adoption of electric vehicles take place in the United States?
Well, based upon current indicators, 2023 is supposed to be the year that we hit or officially hit that 5%. And if that's the case, things could move really fast. Now, you might be thinking they're moving a lot faster than what you're hearing me talk about right now because of everything you see on TV. It's like every commercial is about an electric vehicle. Okay. You got these Ford trucks and called Lightning, and I can go on and on and on about, average 367 miles per charge, et cetera. Those are under normal driving conditions. What if you're towing a boat and you can only go about 75 miles? I mean, there's a lot of issues out there.
Right. It's not a perfect technology quite yet.
No.
So for people who don't know, what is this 5% tipping point? What does it mean?
It means that for several years now, behind the scenes, the Elon Musks of the world and other, entrepreneurs, forward thinking people, risk takers, people of all kinds of businesses have been slowly building this infrastructure and investing lots of money, like Ford, General Motors. There's people that are investing billions of dollars over the next few years, thinking that this is going to be a hit and it's going to be a payoff. And is it good for the economy? Well, yeah, it is. But this is America. It's different than other countries where they've adopted these things. So it's going to take next 10 years, probably.
That's a long outlook that we have there.
Yeah,
and
it is.
I hear that some manufacturers aren't on the EV boat quite yet. Have you heard anything about Toyota or any other manufacturers that just aren't quite there yet?
Toyota has adopted a different philosophy, according to just what I know at this time. It's just kind of, they're building into something else, not just fully electric vehicles, hydrogen. I mean, there's a lot of other things that they're in the process of aligning with. So there hasn't been as huge a push. They have a lot of hybrid, or a few hybrid vehicles and a couple of fully electric vehicles, but they're not the mass push that we see with Ford and General Motors and BMW and some of the other manufacturers out there. They're adopting a different approach because, they're part of the 5%. Is this really going to take off? There's a lot of challenges just with EVs themselves and batteries and where all the minerals and metals come from to produce them.
Right. And we'll get into that a little bit. Speaking of, the 5% tipping point and mass adoption, what are the EV sales estimates nationwide?
Well, for example, I think there's 13 or 14 states now that have adopted not selling gas vehicles by 2035. And to be fully, the U.S. to be fully electric by 2050, if I'm not mistaken, in Biden's Inflation Reduction Act. And for a lot of different reasons. Hey, sometimes you got to put stuff way out there. So if you're reaching for the stars and you hit the moon, okay, you've made tremendous progress. But if you're not reaching at all and then things get modified, technology's advancing extremely fast. So who knows what's around the corner, but there's some really interesting things. As a matter of fact, Glenn Lundy, for those of you who don't know him, when I met him originally last year, he was talking about how technology has evolved from 1922 to 2022. Now we're in 23. But he said that technology will evolve in the next 5 years like it did the last 100 years. So it's coming fast. I mean, cell phones, technology, battery technology, but it's not affordable for the average consumer right now. And that nobody even really talks about. Very rarely, a friend of mine bought a Tesla. What he didn't realize, older gentleman with a great driving record, his insurance almost doubled.
It's pretty expensive.
It is.
Very expensive parts to replace and things like that on those
Yes.
vehicles. So what I hear you saying, Russell, is there's some unpredictability around EV adoption rates based on, infrastructure and whatnot. Am I right there?
Where's this stuff coming from? that produces batteries, these lithium-ion batteries. Where's it coming from? I mean, 89% of all the minerals worldwide are controlled by China. Or we just think, everybody reflect back what happened in the pandemic, okay? With antibiotics and masks and all kinds of stuff. We have to be really careful. What electricity costs are, shutting down fossil fuels, which is going on. There's a lot going on. Let me turn this thing off. People are just hammering me right now. People are hammering me. That's okay.
Busy guy.
Yeah.
So I'm going to pivot a little bit,
Okay.
Russell, because this is a webinar really for fixed op directors, service managers, general managers who are curious on EV's impact on the fixed ops department. So consider yourself a dealership that wanted to adopt EV technology. What are some of the cons and what are some of the pros to that?
Well, training right now, equipping your facilities, if you can, depending on where you live, that's a big thing. Yeah, training, you might be thinking, well, there's a big expense with that right now, and you can get that training. You can get upfitting and solar panels and all the other things that are necessary to get right now, or you can have a lie in wait. And in a couple of few years, when it takes off, if it does take off, you're going to have to wait a long time. The cost to actually do the training and set your infrastructure up is going to cost way more than what it costs right now. So that's certainly a pro. And then it's just a matter of what we're doing in our service departments right now. If you don't have that facility or charging stations and the infrastructure, is that kind of the question you were asking me about, or did I go off on a tangent?
Yeah, no, that's perfect. That's what I wanted to know. As far as the investment costs, training, and the staff required to service those types of vehicles.
A lot cheaper now. But there's a lot of people, which you and I have talked about in other types of sessions, things that are going on at the dealerships as far as upgrading. Let's face it, nobody wants to be sitting in your waiting room in the service department. They don't. And we know the two biggest defection points are tires and oil changes. And tires are a big thing with EV because of the torque and the type of tires, performance tires they have. They tend to go through tires a lot faster. So they're going to need to be coming in. And if we're not equipped to handle those people and meet them the way they want to be met and interact with them and transparent with them, but having a nice facility, restaurants, movie theaters, shoe shines, pedicures, manicures, kids rooms, it goes on and on and on. I actually see these in some of the dealerships. Some of you know what I'm talking about. So these are all things that dealers are starting to think outside the box, because depending on who you're talking to, if it's, let's say, 80-20, 70-30, 65-35, the defection rate after the third or fourth year, and we have an opportunity to seize that, pivot, and take all that back, the franchise dealers is better equipped today than any other time in history to handle any and all needs related to the consumer, whether it be electric or gas-powered vehicles. And the 16 non-franchise entities are not. This is a pivotal time, and there's a huge paradigm shift taking place. And we need to, for those that you don't know, paradigm is rules and regulations that establish the boundaries we live by. There's a huge shift taking place right now. Most of you know what I'm talking about. Some of you may be hearing this for the first time, but fixed operations is where it's at right now. Fixed is a huge focal point, right? I mean, you can sell cars, but if you don't have fixed operations and those people aren't coming back and turning around and buying cars, depending on the job we do, then selling cars doesn't mean anything. Service means everything.
That makes a whole lot of sense. We are at that pivotal moment, or at least almost there, where the independent service centers or some other sort of entity could come in and swipe that business away if we're not ready to catch it.
That's right. Case in point, conversation not too long ago, this guy was talking to the CEO of a large franchise, and he wouldn't say the guy's name or talk about the type of say the name of the franchise, but when he said how many he had, everybody knew, and it was 1,600 franchises. Well, let's just count tire. Well, they're a little concerned right now because they know dealers are getting into the game now. They're selling tires. They're practicing the transparency. They're investing money in their technicians and their advisors to be able to handle customers and electric vehicles, et cetera. So they're a little scared because all they do is tires and wiper blades and alignment. They don't even do alignment. It's just tires and wiper blades. Franchise dealer does everything. This is the perfect storm for franchise dealers right now to pay attention to.
And I think a lot of people need to hear that. Now, I'm wondering, we hear, how can I say this nicely? We hear very different information from media and the government than what we actually experience with our boots on the ground. So what do you think media and government are saying about fixed operations and EV adoption? When do you think they are saying it'll take place? How quickly is it coming? What kind of message are we getting from the top?
Well, the message we're getting is it's inevitable. It's coming. The government is getting behind it, but everybody knows that politics plays a huge, crucial role in this. Okay. So let's take for granted, a lot of people are hearing this for the first time. There was an article written by a journalist in Norway, and I think they're at 38% electric vehicles, and it could be higher. And a lot of other countries are way further along than we are, but they're running into their own major challenges. For example, it's almost $1 a kilowatt hour to charge a vehicle. That's equivalent to $100 to charge a Tesla right now. Then we don't have the infrastructure set up. I mean, we need hundreds of thousands of charging stations. There's places you can't even travel. And then range anxiety is a term I never even heard. So when people get in and they're going to take a trip, they have to map out. And then it's even, maybe it shows in the electric vehicle where those charging stations, but are they old? Are they Are they updated? Are they level 1? Are they level 2? What about San Francisco? What about New York and major metropolitan areas? What about the power grid? These are all things that people are thinking about, and the government is acting like, okay, green energy is going to take care of it all. We need to go green. Well, if we're the only ones in the world going green, I mean, what about the rest of the world?
Well, and there's certainly an issue going green if we can't support our usage with green technology. There's a place for it, I'm sure, but it doesn't support all of our needs, which is a big problem. So speaking of sort of the government and the political climate, tell us a little bit about the political climate when it comes to EV.
Well, okay. Well, earlier I mentioned that I think 13 or 14 states recently, your state, Charity, adopted the no more electric vehicles to be sold after 2035.
No more gas-powered vehicles.
Gas cars, right. That's political. But then there's another state that just introduced a bill of legislation banning the sale of electric vehicles by 2035. Now, tell me that's not politics, okay? Listen, I get the green energy. We all want clean air to breathe, clean drinking water. We all want that. For the most part, we have the cleanest country on the planet because of the things that we adopted. Yet we don't want to get our own fossil fuels. We don't want to get our own minerals and minerals. We don't want to do that inside. We want to go outside. So then you got politics involved, like the Nord Stream 1, 2, and 3 pipelines going from Russia to Europe. And all of a sudden a freak accident happened, which I'm sure it wasn't coincidental, but they all three got blown up at the same time. Well, that disrupts everything. So if that happens, now those countries are going back to, they're digging coal again. They're buying, what do you call it, propane and natural gas from us again, where they were backing off quite a bit. And then you got other countries controlling the oil flow, how we're begging and pleading with them to increase production. My God, we were energy efficient. We were energy independent 2.5 years ago. Now we're energy dependent, not independent. We need to take that back. So we have 3 power grids in the United States that I didn't even know about. You have the East, you have the West, and you have the Central or Texas power grid. And in those 3 power grids, there's 55,000 substations. And what most people don't know is there's blackouts and brownouts, and 38% of all power outages that all of you experience on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis are due to sabotage on our power grid because nobody's overseeing it. Okay.
It's a scary thought.
Yeah.
Well, we're seeing, whether even though it may not be this tsunami of growth across the nation, We are seeing a rise in EV adoption,
We are.
but I hear that consumers are still resistant to adopting EV. Do you know why that is?
Well, pricing, availability, lithium is the most plentiful, one of the most plentiful resources on the planet. And I think it's by 2050, if we're not recycling that lithium that's used for lithium-ion batteries, then we'll be out of lithium. Then what are we going to do? Only 5% of lithium batteries are even recycled in the United States. You got to be careful how those are recycled because it's can be extremely dangerous. Or how about the cobalt that's used to produce those? Where are they coming from? Well, 80% of it comes from the Democratic Republic of Congo. And well, I'll tell you what, you go to YouTube and search some of those, it's by child labor. 80% is controlled by China. So it's almost like, I think we have one nickel mine called Eagle Mountain. Is that correct? Do you remember hearing about that? One of those, and it's scheduled to shut the doors by 2025. They're going to shut the doors. That's the only remaining nickel mine we have. I mean, it's like, okay, not in my country because we're green. We want to get it everywhere else, regardless of the deplorable, horrible, inhumane conditions. And I think that's where a lot of people are starting to, hey, I'm not real sure about where this is going.
Questionable. So what about the practical reasons? What are some practical reasons why maybe you or I wouldn't really want to buy an EV right now? That's, that makes it just quite not as convenient as having a gas powered vehicle.
Well, one of them is prices. One of them is charging stations, infrastructure. The infrastructure is horrible. There's parts of the country that don't even have charging stations. Those are the two that I can think of. The fact that you have to wait, if you can even get them, in the Inflation Reduction Act signed into law just a month ago, January 1st. There's X number of dollars that are available for the purchase of new and pre-owned electric vehicles with a lot of conditions. Read the fine print, income, etc. Then on top of that, even before that happened, because it was months in the making before Biden and actually signed off on this January 1st of 2023. But Ford and General Motors, everybody's already raised their prices to meet and or exceed the money that's available. So we need a fair amount of money or incentive for the next 10 years. And there needs to be much more affordable models for the masses. It's like right now, it's only for the elite, Yeah,
that makes sense. And, that was my next question. Tell us a little bit about the Inflation Reduction Act.
It's political, first of all. Most people construe it, I've heard a lot, that it's not the Inflation Reduction Act, it's the Green New Deal. Just billions and billions and billions of dollars set up for wind and all different types of resources to produce electricity. And it's just, I don't know. I just saw this on television this morning. I've seen it a few times. New Jersey, New York, off the coast there's these huge wind farms out in the ocean, okay? Windmills producing electricity. The ecological fallout has been devastating. Just in the last couple of months, there's been like 12 whales wash up on shore dead. What it's doing to the environment, birds that are getting killed because of not only the production, because of the noise that it makes, silent, that can't hear. The processing plants onshore is creating havoc for whales, which some of them are an endangered species, like a blue whale that just washed up on shore today. There's so many of those things, but they don't talk about those things. It's a political hotspot. It's a political agenda. Back in the day, the horse and carriage went into Ford and the Model T, and that adoption process took about 20 years before it hit 5%, and it was affordable to the masses. I mean, this is really no different. It's another means to provide transportation, but we need to be smart about it. And most people think we're not being smart about it, hence the pushback.
Well, that outlook sounds kind of dreary. So what does EV adoption need to have just a modicum of success?
just to have a modicum of success. $10,000 purchase price. This is over the next 5 years. 100,000 charging stations, new charging stations installed, and the unprofitable ones replaced. Half the time, they can't even fully charge, or nobody. I mean, they're offline, so nobody even knows. And sometimes they say they're online, and they're not even online; they're offline. So there's level 1, level 2, level 3 chargers. So $10,000 purchase price for the next 5 years, and at least 100,000 charging stations, more like 400,000 to 500,000. But that's just part of the just to have an iota of a chance to move forward.
Right. And that brings me back to the Inflation Reduction Act. If the modicum for success is 10 years, $10,000 purchase incentives, well, then what is the Inflation Reduction Act offering instead?
Well, they're offering a $4,000 credit on used, $7,500 credit on new, and then there's so many variations. So let me share that. SUVs over $80,000, not qualified. Cars over 55, not qualified, not made in the U.S. I mean, what you have to read the fine print on that. The minerals sourced and assembled inside or outside the U.S. Household income being jointly 300 or single 150, and most of the purchase prices are $10,000 higher than the average price of a gas vehicle today. So those are just some of the things in the Inflation Reduction Act for 2023.
So it sounds like the people who are buying EV vehicles are wealthy to begin with, but the Inflation Reduction Act is more geared toward low income people.
Yeah, to get those people to buy in, right?
Right.
Most of the people you see are well-to-do entrepreneurs, have a lot of money. The reliability. There's nobody really knows. It's an unproven model at this point in time. We know the average life of vehicle on the road is 16 years now in gas. They just go and go and go. It's routine maintenance. If everybody's doing that 2 or 3 times a year, they offset major repairs, which cost a lot more money. That's what service departments are struggling is right now. It's like, okay.
So Russell, as we're talking through all of this, are you telling me that EV adoption is going to happen tomorrow?
No. Yeah, no, it is not. It is not going to happen. It may take another generation before technology is moving so fast. I don't even know if lithium-ion batteries are going to be part of this transformation that's taking place. I don't really know. It's great stuff. I get it. It's great. I don't have one. Do you have one, Charity?
I do not.
No.
I do not.
I mean, I would entertain having one. We think, okay, range anxiety and all these other things that are coming into play, but the average person only drives about 65, 67 miles a day. So it's really a non-issue. Well, then the issue is, what are you doing at home? And everybody's seen if you have it, the Hummer, technological marvel, the electric Hummer. I mean, it's amazing. However, if you have a level 1 charger, which everybody has at home, takes 4 days. 4 days to charge that. If you have a level 2, 220, whatever outlet, you that consider the cost of that too, but it takes well over 24 hours. Anything beyond that starts costing $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. And then is your power grid or infrastructure or substation set up to provide that kind of electricity? That's another issue.
Well, and that's kind of what, apart from the price and sort of the questionable idea of a new vehicle, and I'm really not too techie despite being the generation I am, but I don't want to have to touch screen my way through. To me, I just want to turn it on and go. That's sort of my and I would fully resent having to plug in my car every day. I just simply would.
Yeah, that's certainly another paradigm shift. I remember not too long ago, and the car I have today, it doesn't have a shifter in the console. Okay. It's got a little button you press. I mean, I was out. I'm never going to have one of those vehicles now. It's like, it just takes a while. And I'm not opposed to it. I'm really not. What I'm opposed to is the politics. What I'm opposed to is strapping the United States of and getting all of our minerals, resources, and fossil fuels outside of this country with this global economy we have, what happens if a world war comes? What happens if another pandemic comes? I want to go back to just a couple of years ago when we were energy independent and outsourcing and selling our stuff to other parts of the world. Now it's the exact opposite. I mean, what are we thinking?
Yeah, being reliant on a foreign power sounds like a very dangerous
Well,
idea.
this is where some people are hesitating.
And I understand there are some benefits at the dealership for those who want to start that EV adoption process now. You mentioned earlier, if they don't evolve, then these independent service centers or something like them could come in and swoop up that business. So if a dealership is considering investing in the EV infrastructure right now, what should they do? How should they prepare?
They should probably, the OEM is participating in a big way. Different manufacturers are participating in different ways. So if you're not aware of that, find out just what some of them are actually heavily encouraging you. And if you aren't starting to necessarily adopt and equip your facility, then there's other things as a result that you're not going to be able to participate in. So it's heavily encouraged, but you should be reaching out right now to find out as much as you can. I recently at NADA, I was talking to a Cadillac dealer where General Motors was emphatic about they have to put in these charging stations for their clients. So they contacted the local power company, and they basically laughed. We're not equipped, not now and not in the near future, to be able to run that kind of power to your dealership for charging stations. This is not an isolated. This is all over the country in certain places because our power grid is not set up for it.
Right. It's tricky, especially depending on where you are. If you're very rural, that could be very difficult for a dealership and adoption. And now you reminded me of something else that happened at NADA. There was a guy that we ran into who I think it was one vehicle, one BMW, and they wanted to see how much of a reduction in parts and labor it was over the lifespan of the vehicle. Now, they only did this one vehicle, the research on this one vehicle, but they ended up getting a 40% reduction in parts and labor revenue over the lifespan of the vehicle. So that's something to be aware of as a fixed ops departments who may be really relying on that revenue.
There's approximately 16 million vehicles sold a year. This isn't going to happen overnight. Even if mass adoption starts to take off, it's going to be at least a generation. Plenty of time to equip and see how technology changes, et cetera. Just think about this. 2006, I had cell phones since 1989, had the old Motorola brick one, okay? But as time went on, up to 2007, the smaller the phone was, the more in demand it was. You could barely text. The quality of the phone card, it was awful expensive to even text, let alone just to have the service itself. And then there's a guy named Steve Jobs that thought outside the box, and he introduced something that no one knew in 2007 called the iPhone. Nobody knew they needed that. He created something that revolutionized the world. This may or may not be a part of that. It looks like other countries are adopting a lot quicker than we are, but we're seeing some of the fallout of what it costs to produce the electricity and when it's available, and the infrastructure let down, and depending on other countries. And so these are, once again, reasons people are hesitating, why it's probably not going to happen overnight or in the next 20 to 30 years to the level everybody's going, oh my God, what are we going to do? Why don't you just breathe and relax and get a little bit more information on what's going on, but slowly start moving towards it. But it's not going to be an overnight thing. And I think a lot of people think it is. That's what I thought when you and I were at NADA doing our workshop. That was a real prevalent topic because everybody's talking about like, oh my, I remember when websites first came on the scene and internet leads back in 1996 when I was running a store. It's like, that's it. It's over. We're not going to do anything. This is never going to, people are still coming to dealerships buying cars. Or how about when Carvana came out? Oh, they were going to revolutionize. Nobody's going to come to look, we just all need to chill, relax, get as much information as we can. It's changing almost daily.
Well, that's true. And, let's consider, you're in a dealership, you're in the position where you want to embrace EV, but you're not quite ready yet to be investing in the infrastructure. You think maybe the infrastructure will evolve and become better, and you don't want to invest now, but you could buy better later. What
Right.
other things can dealerships do to attract the sort of customer that would buy an EV vehicle?
Well, first of all, they're very technically savvy. And I know most of you might find this really hard to believe, but just a few months ago, $9.2 billion was spent in one day online. So why don't you look at your websites? Okay. Why don't you look at the customer's journey? Don't just look at the variable side, look at the fixed side, look at every single navigation that you have, go through there, and you're going to be horrified with what you see. Okay. I know a lot of times you might look at other people's website, your competitors, see if they have something or some new ideas that you can adopt, but why don't you look into your own? Let's be, a lot of the stuff that we're responsible for today with the defection rate is because our leaders are not leaders. Our leaders are lighting fires under people to get them to move and do their job instead of inspiring and motivating them from within to be the best they can be. How about transparency? When meeting customers where they're at, what's going on when it's on the lift? If they're in for a routine oil change, rotate and balance, and the technician's got on the lift rotating the tires and balancing them, and the rotors are scorched and below 3 millimeters or right at 3 millimeters on the pads. You just go out there and tell them and say it's going to be X number of dollars. Well, that's why 16 of those other non-franchise entities are there in the first place. Transparency from the time they drive in, what's going on with their car? What kind of person is it? Building a relationship, the experience in the relationship, and taking care of your people. I mean, really, all of this goes back to the problem that we have today is because of you and because of me and the way we conduct business. We're not separate from the variable side. We're one team. Together, everyone achieves more. One is dependent on the other. And yet we treat the fixed operations department like now all of a sudden they're paying attention to it because of the revenue. But that's not going to change unless we change. The change starts inside. We can't look for all these things outside to make changes when maybe I'm the problem. Maybe I have a lot of turnover. Well, if you got people that are leaving over a few dollars an hour, chances are it could be small chance for that $3 or $4 an hour difference, but they were already unhappy. That was just the excuse for them to exit because they don't feel a part of. They feel neglected and left out and dehumanized and not part of anything. All those things are starting to change. I think, Charity, I can go off on a tangent on that, so I'll stop there.
Well, it sounds to me like what you're saying is, we used to get away with some of this behavior, this sort of, treat the customer like crap, treat our staff however we want, to spend hours changing oil, and all of these things are starting to change. There's a brand new generation coming up, Generation Alpha, my children, and they're just not going to put up with stuff like this. And they want EVs. So
the like you and me, work hard, climb that ladder. Really, it's things are changing. So the Gen Z and Gen Ys there, the alphas that you're talking about that are up and coming in the next 10 to 15 years, they who knows what they're going to want or what motivates them. But it's not all about money like I thought it was. It's not all about money. Is it conducive for raising a child? Is there daycare? Some dealerships have built-in daycares, restaurants, like I mentioned earlier. How about flexibility in time and schedules? How about training? Yes, you can make a lot of money being an advisor and a technician. And a lot of times the dealerships are actually co-oping or actually paying for all that for you staying at the dealership. But we still have to take care of our people. And the best way to do that is to take care of our customers, meet them where they're at. When it's all about transparency and pouring and loving and believing in your people and helping them be the best they could possibly be by understanding what makes them tick. We're not robots. Okay. Now, if they didn't produce, fire him. If he's bought a man on the pole, fire him.
So, I want to ask you, and you're a great person to ask this question. You have been all over the United States. You've been to so many different dealerships. What sort of things have you seen dealerships do to attract those types of customers to prepare? Now, you mentioned a little bit some child play areas, restaurants. Maybe you could elaborate on one in particular that you're aware of.
Well, okay, so Ed Roberts comes to mind, many others, but he's the first one that popped into my mind. Meeting the customer that and transparency. I think they have 13, maybe now more mobile service vehicles to meet the customer where they're at for convenience. They have they don't, most of the time, they hire rarely, based upon my memory, anybody from outside. When they hire people in, they start them in these apprenticeship programs and slowly work with them and build them into the culture and promote from within. And they have an amazing low-level turnover with advisors and the training, mentorship and training program. It starts out in high schools and vocation schools and other people in the community that they're participating in. All these things are really important. Just hiring somebody from the next town or whatever. I mean, but let me tell you what Ed Roberts and his team, with all the people I've met, are servant leaders. I don't think we hear that enough. Well, what does that mean? Well, he's the chief operations officer now, and he was the fixed ops director for parts and service for a long, long time. But if you ever listen to him, he's always talking about promoting and inspiring people and finding out what their why is, and meeting people's needs and wants and desires if it's even possible. And because of that, and where they're meeting they treat the customer the same way. And as a result, they got an operation like, if you ever get a chance to visit online, you can look at it. But I've been there from East Coast to West Coast, and I'm telling you, this is one of the most premier, but not only that, but how they pour into their people and elevate their people and let them know they can. I see posts on LinkedIn and other social media circles with porters, advisors, technicians, and many other people throughout, promoting them and elevating them with a one-on-one promotion on social media in recognition, recognizing your people for a job well done, right? And it's not just the money. Do we want more money? Yeah, nothing wrong with that. But if you want to keep them long-term, let them know they count, they matter, they make a difference, and they're a part of something greater than just themselves, and that they count, right? That's it.
That's right. Yeah. And you said something that popped an idea into my mind, now that dealerships are adopting this mobile service, now we have to worry about supporting our team, both in the service department and on the road. And for those of you that don't know, we run a podcast called What the Fixed Ops, and there's an episode with Joshua Taylor, and he talks about the mental health and taking care of mechanics who are solo on the road. So if that's something you're interested in, please look into it. Now, I want to dive a little bit into dealership technology. So
Okay.
dealership technology, the website, you mentioned a little bit about transparency and some of these products that, scan the vehicle to do the walk around, basically.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit how dealerships are using technology to cater to these new technology literate customers.
So we recently met with in person, got them a little bit on our WTF, don't get me. And that's not what you think it is. What the Fixed Ops, which Sherry said a minute ago. What the Fixed Ops. But you're on, who's the director of marketing, if I got that right, with UVI. Huh?
He's the CMO.
He's the CMO, right? Chief Marketing. So of UVI. I mean, there's many other things out there similar, depending on what you're looking for, affordability, whether you're a large metropolitan or a small outlier, but traction, there's a lot of different companies out there, but this thing is amazing. So when the customer drives on the threshold, it knows top to bottom, underneath and on the sides, what dents, dings, scratches. That's valuable for transparency, right? If there was an oil leak this time that wasn't there last time, it's all videoed, and we're talking 1080p or higher. I mean, the quality is like amazing. And it knows that the wear and tear, I think tire pressure. I'm probably shortchanging how well this technology is. We'll then consider, Okay, that's great. You have a talking point to start building that relationship or with a repeat customer because you want them coming back 2 to 3 times a year. But what about when it's on the lift? Okay. True Video and many other, and Xtime has their own. I mean, there's a lot of them out there. Those are just a couple that come to mind where the technician can either take pictures and or a video while the car's on the lift pointing these things out. So when you share it with the customer on the drive, that's transparent. They can see it. And then when you're talking about like Repair Pal is a good example. It's phenomenal stuff. All of those companies I suggest you look into for transparency. This builds long terms, keeps those people coming back. So when you know that say a brake job is, they quote you a brake job because the rotors are scorched and the pads are gone. And now you can see it not only in a video with a technician talking about it. And of course, that's a safety danger, right? That's dangerous. So right. Then you have Repair Pal that you can plug into your make and model and what it is. And you're probably not the highest, you're not the lowest, but these are accurate numbers of what all the non-franchise entities are doing in your area real time for the exact same service. Now, when you present that and you just went through what it was going across the drive, what happened while it was on the lift, and now you're permitting scheduled maintenance, recommended maintenance, whatever the term you want to use, they're likely going to say yes. And they're going to remember that experience, right? That's what they're going to remember.
Very true, Russell. And that sort of brings me into my next question.
Okay.
So you have a big knowledge base of this, and I know that very well. Can you share your knowledge of the customer experience with us from when they contact the dealership or even look for their dealership at the website level to when they pay their invoice?
I don't get a chance a lot of times, but FixedOPS marketing is the original video couponing and full service marketing solution for fixed operations. And what I mean by that is the website is where people are going to go first. Okay. I was recently involved, engaged in many different ways, talking about with a lot of FixedOPS people all over the country about the experience, the relationship, which one's more important, et cetera. Where do you get started? Some of this stuff costs a lot of money. Technology is used to accelerate momentum, not create something that's not there. Chances are you've all had certain types of technology over the years and requires people to do a lot of different things to get the desired result. People aren't adopting, they're not getting on. It's not part of the process, so it gets canceled, okay? 99% literally of people are going to hit your website. They're looking for one of 4 things: new, used, parts, and service. They're looking for information. The website is there to provide that information and create an optimal experience for them to engage and find out what it is they're looking for. When you go to the variable side, it's there. When you go to the fixed side, au contraire, it's not. No specials at this time, under construction, check back later. Handful of static images, customer can't do anything with. Perhaps a few coupons, some of them still have scissors cutting out a dotted line. And when I talk to FixedOPS directors all over the country, most of them say the same thing. They don't have conversion data, or if they do, they don't know where to find it, or even if it exists at all. And unfortunately, sadly, a lot of them don't even know what's on their website. They get it. They understand it's important. Customers, if you look, not my numbers, but the specials content page, which is ideally where all 4 profit centers for the dealership's website are at, typically is the second most visited content page because people are looking for offers, coupons, specials. And it's not one of those things, no, we don't believe in that. Well, you better change your thought process. I'm not talking about 1995 oil changes that you lose money on when 75% of your traffic is already oil changes during the warranty period. I'm talking about educating the consumer about these things, making them aware, make your advisors aware. People would much rather watch a 45-second video and then to be able to convert. What do I mean by convert? Look at your website now. Probably, I'm not going to be too far off, 97% of you, if there's something there, you might be able to print. Do you have conversion data for that? No. How about scheduling service? They can link to a service scheduling page. Have you tried to schedule on your own website what it's like to schedule service and the questions that are asked? I'm not saying all of them are that way, but a lot of them are. How about this? All the only metrics you know is did they actually complete the service scheduling process in the DMS? Beyond that, you have no metrics. Coupons. I see coupons right now. The expiration date is 12/31/2023. I mean, are you kidding me? Static images with no information or transparency whatsoever. This is what customers are looking for today. The most inexpensive way to start is on your website.
So what I'm hearing you say, Russell, is if you are a dealership, you're interested in getting these EV customers down the road,
Yes.
having a static website is just not good enough.
No, we got assets, video assets for electric vehicles. You name it, any and every. We have over 600 video coupons in our library. It's not a generic. These cater to various. So let me just give you an example. This is really relatable. So occasionally when I do honeydew projects around the house, okay, I used to, about prior to 5 or 6 years ago, when I would tackle a project, not kidding, 5 or 6 trips to Lowe's or Home Depot before I finally got it right. Something I thought would take an hour took 9 hours. I started out on YouTube every time. Watch the video.
YouTube University.
Yep. YouTube University. I'm telling you the exact product, brand, what I need, etc. I can get online. Guess what? I can find it.
And
I
it's
can
great.
watch a video about it in conjunction with what I saw on YouTube, as well as finding that information out there. So this is the kind of stuff I'm talking about. A lot of you already do that. Okay. Look at your website. It's not there. If you want more information about that, reach out to us. We'd love to talk to you, because listen, no setup fees, no installation, no long-term agreements. Actually, you can cancel day to day, and we don't even bill you till it goes live. Okay. If you want to revolutionize fixed operations on your website, you need to call FixedOPS Marketing for that.
I have a simple one for you, a simple
Okay.
question, but perhaps not a simple answer. How can dealerships increase retention?
We talked about these things. Transparency from the time they drive to what happens when it's in the back on the lift, to how we're presenting these recommended maintenance features. Okay. It's almost like some advisors won't. It's almost like how much money they got in their pocket, and they're afraid to talk to the customer. For heaven's sakes, you have thousands of vehicles every day across the US of that particular make and model that are pouring in all over the place. This is what's recommended, because recommended maintenance, and we need to be bold and ask for it. Recommended. It's not like we're not stealing from people. We're trying to offset major repairs that cost a lot more just by making certain recommendations and developing a personal relationship with the customer. It's really important. And most of them start out, like I said, on their website. But what's happened in the drive? How about mobile service? These are things that are in equipping your facility to optimize that experience. All those things I just mentioned are critical to customer retention. And for heaven's sake, get in the tire game and develop an express or whatever. I think a lot of people think that, and there's conflicting messages on this. Scheduling service, why don't we meet the customer on their time instead of trying to force the customer to meet us on our time? Because that, quite frankly, is not working. It's not working. There's a lot of experts out there, some of which we're going to be introducing and talking to you about, like Michael Barich and Joshua Taylor and many other, Shawn Butler, and many other people that have extensive knowledge in this and what it's like. So when a customer is coming in for oil change and you're forcing them to schedule a week out, something's going to have to change, or you're going to keep the definition of insanity, keep doing the same thing, expecting different results. So hopefully you got some great information today that'll help you think outside the box and change the way that you've been doing things. Don't wait till tomorrow. Don't wait till when this is right, or the money's right, or if this happens or that happens. No, it's day one. That's how it works. Start today.
Well said, Russell. And thank you, everybody who made it this far. We sure hope you learned something valuable today. Keep in touch with us. Visit fixedopsmarketing.com/now. We will have more super sessions to come, and you don't want to miss them.
Charity, thank you. Really enjoyed it. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in.
Up next, Michael Barich, the Tennessee Titan and FixedOPS Doc.
The time has finally come. Customized. Unlimited. Dealership branded videos for fixed operations. Introducing Prestige, the comprehensive, interconnected, personalized video marketing platform, automatic instant distribution to social media. Create and distribute as many videos as you want, as often as you want, for one low price. You'll benefit from on-demand custom videos with your own branding, produced in less than 3 minutes, and to use however you want. Includes automatic drip campaigns and integration into your social media channels, such as Facebook and YouTube. Prestige includes all the features of our performance product, with more advanced functionality. Multiple offers per category, filtered searches, interactive slideshow with fully managed banners, service tips content, and custom landing pages. Prestige also includes a full SEO solution and SEO pages, along with customizable email marketing templates, which sends your service specials directly to your customers' inboxes. You'll also receive a fully automated Google Business Profile with daily campaigns for your offers and analytics and traffic reporting. Prestige is compatible on any device and integrates seamlessly into your already existing systems. And the best part is we do it all for you. No usernames, passwords, or logins required. We promise no setup fees, no installation fees, no obligation or long-term contracts, and you can cancel anytime. Prestige. Designed by us, created for you. Contact us for a demo.
Find out why we're described as the best decision ever made by FixedOPS directors. Visit fixedopsmarketing.com/FixedOPS Institute.
We're back on to the next segment of the online super session on EVs and fixed operations, and on to our next guest. I'd like to welcome Michael Barich, the FixedOPS doc and the Tennessee Titan. Mike, welcome.
Thank you, Charity. I'm really excited about this opportunity to speak on EVs. I don't know that I'm the industry professor, but I might have a little bit of knowledge that I'd be happy to share with you. So
good. Well, we're really interested in EVs from the perspective of fixed operations. That seems to be a very cloudy area. So we want to get to know your perspective a little bit better. And first of all, for people who don't know, they call you the Tennessee Titan, and I'd love for you to tell people why.
I hang out with a bunch of dudes on Sunday morning from Service Drive Live, and I'm originally from Chicago. So I reside in Tennessee currently, and my buddy Joe Chambers gave me the nickname Tennessee Titan. And I kind of graduated from there, but the Titan fits, the Tennessee Titan fits. It's all good, and I appreciate Joe for handing that one off to me. I think it's a good fit.
It is a good fit. And it also fits your success as a fixed ops director. Am I right about that?
I've had some success in that arena. Yes, ma'am.
Good. Tell us a little bit about that success.
I've been in the industry for the last 30 something years. I'm a little embarrassed to tell you that because it's showing my age, but I am drinking coffee at 1 o'clock in the afternoon and showing off my Parts Girl podcast coffee mug.
Great podcast.
Cheers. I'm from Chicago originally. I ran an automotive group there for about 16 years. I left in 2016. During those 16 years, I was running that previous automotive group. I can tell you that we won the President's Award for 15 consecutive years for Toyota. And there's less than a handful of dealerships that could lay claim to that type of longevity. And the President's Award is based on your ability as a dealership to take care of customers and then meet some goals on the variable side and the fixed side. And so, we had a good track record there. From there, when I left Chicago, I went to San Antonio, Texas. Had a great run there, and then I've been in Tennessee now for almost 4 years.
Yeah, so I would say that you're a leader in fixed operations.
Okay, I think I appreciate that. So first of all, thank you. But I think I'm a bigger student than I am a leader. I'm forever learning, so I have this insatiable thirst for knowledge, and I'm also plagued with a lot of questions that happened between these 2 years. And I want answers.
Yeah, well, let's dive into the topic of EV. In your experience, what is your experience that you had with EV and the fixed ops department?
So my Toyota experience was battery EV, right? They had hybrid models on their third generation Prius or fourth generation Prius by the time I left Chicago. So I have some experience with it. During my tenure here in Tennessee, I worked for a Nissan store, and the Leaf has been a staple for Nissan in the EV marketplace. So I've got some familiarity with the vehicles.
As far as, the question is fixed operations, EV, how will that change the service department? Do you have any insider knowledge on how EVs change parts and labor profits per vehicle or the revenue of the entire service department?
No.
Well, I can say that at NADA, I spoke with one gentleman who had done the study on one BMW EV, and they discovered a 40% drop in parts and labor over the lifespan of the vehicle. Does that sound about right? And how scary is that?
I think that's speculative. I don't know, and I don't know the depth of the study. So I would obviously like to learn more, but I think there's going to be more to that as we get deeper into EV penetration in your primary market area and how it's going to influence or impact your overall service and fixed ops performance.
Well, I know that there are some needed services that are required by EVs. And do you think dealers should look to embrace some of those needed services and market them to their customers?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's going to start in the tire business, and we should already be in the tire business today. So if those dealers aren't in that market today and capitalizing on tire sales as it relates to overall retention, service retention, they're going to be playing from behind as we continue to evolve into the EV market. But the vehicles are going to be a little heavier. I think, my experience in Toyota might just make this a good talking point for me, because Toyota as a manufacturer provided us as dealers with Toyota Care. And I don't remember the exact year, but it was their complimentary prepaid maintenance plan that was good for the first 2 years or 25,000 miles. And so there's a little bit of disconnect in that maintenance schedule about the necessary need for the in-between oil change services, which would have been like the 5, the 15, and 25,000 mile service. So those services don't include an oil change, but I think we need to make sure that we're educating our customers on the importance of following a factory recommended maintenance schedule. And so, having the ability to perform that 5,000 mile service, which includes a tire rotation, brake inspection, and a multi-point inspection, we have to train our customers in the importance of that, because there's value and benefits to prolonging the life and wear of the customer's tires. There's also value in making sure we get the wheels and tires off the vehicle so we can get an accurate look at the braking system. And it makes it really difficult with the wheels and tires on the vehicle to do it accurately. And in most cases, I would tell you, it's just it's swag.
Yeah. Now I hear Toyota they haven't gone full EV like a lot of the manufacturers have. They've gone more with a hybrid model. They're kind of going more with the real market as opposed to the perceived market. Do you feel like that's right?
I do. I don't think you have to subscribe to fix what isn't broken. Look at what they've done in the market, right? For the last 50 years plus. I mean, I think their strategy is successful. I think there's merit to it. They're already providing some of those benefits as it relates to zero emission. And so I don't know. I don't think you fix what isn't broken, my opinion.
Yeah, makes sense to me, right? And when those customers do come in for their scheduled maintenance service, that's a good time to focus on the customer. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and I think that's why Toyota Care was so important, because it allowed us the ability to potentially see that customer 5 times before they paid for their first maintenance service. So that's where we really have to dig in, and that's where we had a tremendous amount of success. We were the number one dealer in the Chicago region for Toyota Care maintenance penetration. And, you know, that's kind of a big deal, but it allowed us to have relationships with our customer and share what I'm sharing with you. The complimentary maintenance that doesn't include an oil change is just as important as the one that does include that. So preventative maintenance is cheaper than repairs. We have to share that message and champion that to our customers. And we're going to have to do a much better job at that collectively with our EV customers.
Yeah, they seem like, that regardless of what people drive, they're still customers. So, there's, I'm sure you have a lot of top secret tips to, retaining and improving that customer experience.
I think you just have to make it convenient to the customer that they can do on their own schedule, not at my schedule, right? And I think for the last 25 or 30 years, I really tried to control the service drive. And over the last 3 years, I've tried to just give up that control and put it back in the customer's hand. And then what we need to do at that point is position ourselves with the proper staff to be able to service those customers.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And you're very much an expert on that. I will vouch for that. And I think it's really important that if you're having trouble with anything in that department, you get a hold of Mike. I'll have his information on the screen and talk to him about it. He's excellent in that department.
Thank you, Charity.
So I guess this is the big question overall. Do you think EVs are a concern for fixed ops directors when it comes down to the profitability of their service department?
Yes, I mean it's going to be a concern, and it should be a focus today, but it shouldn't be the primary focus. So depending on who you talk to and who you're getting your information from today, anything that I'm going to tell you or something that somebody else may tell you is pure speculation, right? So in my travels, I've heard that the access point where EV vehicles will surpass ICE vehicles will be somewhere in the neighborhood of 2033 or 2034. It could be sooner. It also could be later. So I'm not a big fan of forecasting and planning 10 years in advance. I mean, we have to adopt some of those practices today, but there's so much talk and chatter about EV as if it's going to happen tomorrow. And I don't buy that, especially with the average age of a used vehicle being the highest it's ever been, ever. Mm-hmm. We need to make sure that we understand there's fish in our pond today. Some of those fish may eat other fish and become electric fish or an electric eel, but that pond is still going to be populated with a lot of fish and a lot of your customers that, for the next 10 years, we should be able to do just fine.
Yeah, that's kind of how I envision it in my mind. It's really cool that, we have electric vehicles that you just download an update and, your suspension is fixed or something, which is great. But personally, I don't know very many drivers of those types of vehicles. And there's a lot of uncertainty surrounding the infrastructure and some of the bigger changes. So I view it as kind of like the generation below me. They may be big users of EV, but perhaps not. Maybe I won't see it in my lifetime.
I think you have a much better chance of seeing it than I do.
Well, and I guess that's maybe what some dealers are struggling with, right? Is, it's a lot of investment, a lot of time to adopt these technologies, to put in solar panels and the charging infrastructure, who pays for it. And, there's a lot of questions behind that. So what do you think? If you were at a dealership and your GM came to you and said, are we going to start investing in this technology or not? What side of the fence would you be on, if not right in the middle?
Well, I think you have to be proactive. So over the last 7 years, I had the pleasure of getting to build 2 brand new facilities that we were talking about this in 2014 and 2015. So you have to have the infrastructure for charging systems, whether it's outside the facility or inside the facility where your technicians are working. It's not just the main shop. You're going to need some of that capability in your express bays. I think you have to be proactive, but the capital expenditures are huge. And so that dealer is absorbing a huge burden that it might take some time to get a return on that investment.
That's certainly true. So I guess the scariest question I have in all of this, are service departments as we understand them today going to be a thing of the past?
I would say no, 100% no. I think anytime that you have a relationship with a customer and you're cultivating relationships, there's still going to be a need for human contact. You can't fix all the world's problems by over the airways, software updates. The customer is going to need to have somebody to go talk to at the dealership. And some people don't want to just have over the air updates. They don't feel comfortable with that technology and they may want to go to the dealership. And I think as long as we have customers in the automotive industry, service departments are going to be a necessity.
Right. So taking care of your customer today, regardless of what they drive, will help you retain those customers tomorrow.
I hope nobody's learning that today from our conversation.
I hope
but
not.
for those that are and the light bulb went off, yes, 100%.
Well, what do you think if you were in that position where you had the opportunity to start embracing some of these technology in the dealership? What are some of the things that you would do first, or would you even start there? Would you start somewhere else more related to the customer experience?
Well, I think knowledge is power, and we have to be able to train our teams, whether it's an advisor, an express advisor, an express technician, a main shop technician, one of your parts personnel, your service BDC, your receptionist. I think we have to be able to get them to be involved in learning about the electrification of a vehicle, because in most cases, the customers are very well schooled and very well versed on that technology. And we can't be behind them when we're having a conversation because we're not providing any leadership to the customer at that point, right? If they know more than I do, let's just throw up the white flag, like we're in trouble. So as a leader, I think we have to make sure that we're holding our team accountable to get trained on the knowledge, on the equipment, on the safety, all of those features, so we can have a face-to-face conversation with a customer and we understand what they're talking about. Because if we don't have trust, the customer is looking at me or one of my team members, and I'm not bringing that sincerity, I'm not bringing that honesty, I'm not telling them the truth, and there's no future for a relationship, in my opinion.
That makes a whole lot of sense, Mike. Focus on training, focus on education, so you can at least hold a conversation with your EV customers. So is there anything else that you believe would be important to share during this conversation about EV?
I think we have to continue to adapt in our industry. And for me, I feel like there's been two main constants in our business since I've been in the business, and it's constant change and continuous education. So we have to make sure that we're prepared for those changes just like we learned through the pandemic, like we did pickup and delivery. Some of us adopted that philosophy before the pandemic. Some of us adopted it during the pandemic, but you have to be open to change because it's not going to stop, right? I mean, I think there was some chatter. Russell and I talk about it all the time. He was talking to Glenn Lundy and at NADA in 2022, and Glenn told him something along the lines of the technology in the automotive industry is going to change at a faster pace over the next 5 years than it did in the previous 100. Think about that. And he's right. So we just have to be prepared for those changes. But I don't think we need to be planning right now 10 years in advance. Like this is what I have to do in March of 2033. We have to be able to adapt year after year after year, month after month after month, and continue to communicate openly with our manufacturers, continue to understand what our customers want. And I think, at the end of the day, the customers want to have a relationship with the dealership, but historically, we've just done a poor job in communicating that we want them to come back. And that sticks out like a sore thumb when you talk about retention rates for every manufacturer from coast to coast.
That's right. Retention is incredibly important. Mike, you're great at that. If anybody has any questions about retention, customer experience, how to run a great fixed ops department, clearly, Mike's the guy to call. And so thank you, Mike. Thank you for coming on and sharing your expertise with us today. We surely appreciate it.
Charity, the pleasure's all mine. Thanks for having me.
Up next, Shawn Butler of the Umansky Auto Group.
I did have a lot of questions and I did have a lot of doubts in my mind, but the interactive coupons have been the best decision we've ever made as a group. The people can go on there, they can look at the coupons, they can open up the coupons. It's got the disclaimers built in there. They're fresh looking, they're impressive looking, and they always work. It's been an awesome addition, totally customizable. But your support staff, especially our rep, Leanne, she's amazing. Leanne is the awesomest person in the world.
There you go, Leanne.
I get on the phone with her, and she's always right on the phone, always available. Literally everything that I've asked you guys to do, you've done.
Thank you.
I was a huge skeptic in the beginning, but I can't even describe the difference. It's just just night and day.
Find out why we're described as the best decision ever made by FixedOPS directors. Visit fixedopsmarketing.com/FixedOps Institute.
Welcome back to the Super Session, EV's Impact on Automotive and Fixed Operations. Our next guest is a superstar fixed ops director, Shawn Butler of the Umansky Auto Group. Shawn runs a tight ship and a very successful service department. Shawn, we're talking about EVs today. So I want to know, are you of the belief that EVs are inevitable and will one day, someday soon, change the structure of service departments around the nation and around the world? Or are you more of a skeptic?
Honestly, I believe that the change part of it is inevitable and that we will be forced by the manufacturers to embrace it to a degree. Do I believe that it's going to take over? Absolutely not. It's not long-term sustainable.
And why do you believe it's not long-term sustainable?
You have many factors in there. There's just a lot of people that aren't going to buy into it. If you're in a big city, EVs can make a lot of sense, right? If you have very short commutes or you don't do a lot of driving. But let's face it, 80% of the country is actually rural America, right? So you're not going to convince somebody my age to plan their trip to the beach around charging stations. Not doing it.
That makes a lot of sense. I'm on the West Coast in a very small town, and we have one EV charging station with 2 ports here. I'm not exactly sure how I'd make it to the beach and back without a plug-in. So we've had you on What the Fixed Ops podcast in the past, and you mentioned that you don't believe people in their 40s, 50s, or older will ever see the EV evolution. Do you still believe that? And what is your thoughts on that?
Yes, ma'am. I stick with that. And the reason I'm saying that is because the sustainability is not there with the batteries, right? If every manufacturer, every car brand tries to swap over and go 100% electric, there's not going to be enough minerals to keep up with it. The technology is not going to be able to match the available, resources. So therefore, I believe that things like your hybrid cars, which the batteries last much longer and they're smaller, right? They self-charge. That's a much more plausible, long-term sustainable thing, as well as the hydrogen, right? Why is nobody talking about hydrogen, right? Because that's already been out there for a long time. It's zero emissions. It's readily available. You know why? Because there's not a lot of money in it for a lot of people. Hydrogen stuff just goes and goes and goes, and it's relatively expensive at first, but there's almost they got giant diesel generators producing electricity for the cars. That makes a lot of sense, right?
Right. The whole mission of environmental quality doesn't make a whole lot of sense quite yet.
Yeah, no, I mean, I honestly believe that they're jumping the gun. They've tried to make some short-term changes and fixes to appease a certain segment of the United States, the green movement. And I'm not mad about that. I believe that we should, leave a better footprint for future generations. I have a 6-year-old daughter. I want her to be able to have all the things I had plus some, right? But there's an order and a process. You can't implement something, make it nationwide, and force 20 manufacturers to do it in the course of 5 years. It's just not going to work.
I can't skip over what you just said about having a 6-year-old daughter, Shawn. Tell me about that.
Well, my wife and I, we're both in our 50s, and we have 5 adult children and a 6-year-old. So we're blessed with 5 college graduates who are doing very well, and they're very, well adjusted in life and doing great things. And then my wife and I had been married for a couple weeks when we got a phone call that said, "Hey, if you don't come get this baby, the state's going to take her." And that's a whole nother long story. But so we had been dating for a long time. We had planned to get married once the kids were all off in college and out of the house. And, we have a bunch of kids around the same age. So we have a whole bunch of kids in their mid-20s, and they're all college graduates doing great, like I said. But now God said, you're not going to be traveling. You're not going to be going on whatever vacations you want and living carefree, because I'm going to put the 6-year-old, at the time she was 2 months old. But we can't imagine life any different, right? So I just take it as a sign we did such a good job with the first ones that we needed another one.
It's a blessing, isn't it?
Yes.
All right.
Yes, ma'am.
Back to EVs. So with the outlook of EV being so far down the road, do you think dealerships should put EV adoption on the back burner for now?
You can't, because the manufacturers are forcing you to equip your shops, because they're all putting out EV models. Some are not as heavily bought into it as others, right? You look at the Cadillac dealerships that had to invest anywhere from $500,000 to $1 million or give up their franchise. I think a third of the franchises chose not to do it. Maybe it was a quarter. Either way, they were just like, yeah, never mind. We're not that interested. And they let GM buy them out. Again, I think it's something that you will see a continued rise. Look at Tesla, right? Tesla's just gone crazy with it, and they've done a really good job. But that's all they set out to do. That was their only mission. Rivian can't keep up with orders. So there's great strides being made. But I think as far as dealers go, we have a store in Johnson City, right? Is Acura, and then there's a Mazda store up there, and then I have the store here in Bristol. All right, people in this area aren't driving EVs. They're literally going to make us spend $100,000 to put stuff in that we're never, ever going to use. If we do, it'll be in year 8, 9, or 10. And I think this is going to be a phase, right? They're going to realize they made a mistake down the road, right? Somewhere 7 or 8 years into all this mess. And they're going to go, yeah, that probably wasn't the best thing. Now we've got a zig, first we zag, now we're zigging. And there's going to be a lot of people stuck with $1 million worth of equipment that they're barely using. Heck, we have to buy a 10,000 pound lift for some special battery they're putting in these things. All right. We have to put in a new lift. We have to buy a new piece of equipment, and we have to buy a forklift. I already have a forklift. They said it's not big enough. I got to get a bigger one. Right. So, I mean, the electrical, I mean, it's just ridiculous. But yeah, so to answer your question, dealers aren't going to be able to get around it if they still want to be a dealer, because they have licensing agreements and the manufacturer's allowed to change those agreements.
Right. So you're kind of stuck in a position where you're forced to put this equipment in. And by the time it actually takes hold, if it really does, it'll probably be dated and you've already spent so much money on it.
I mean, it's just like when I used to work for Toyota and they came out with the GR, right? The new Supra, and you had to buy like $40,000 worth of stuff because the car is actually made by BMW. And you service one a year, but you had to buy $40,000 worth of equipment, and they just debit your part statement. You don't get a choice. They send you the stuff.
That's so complicated and so frustrating. I would understand. Do you think that fixed ops directors in California and other pro EV legislation states should really heavily focus on EV?
I think they have to. I don't think they have any other way around it. Will it be a long-term thing? No, I don't really believe so. But they have no choice but to embrace it and go headlong into it, because of how some states have set up their laws and how some manufacturers are really focusing on key areas to them. You know, California being one of them, right? Because the state legislature's there, you have a large population. There's a lot of, I mean, let's face it, we're in a for-profit business. We're not a charity. You know, so therefore, if you want to remain profitable, you have to go with the direction of the business flow. So there's some places that are going to have, if they want to stay in business, they'll have to, for sure.
Do you have any opinion on states like Wyoming that have done the opposite? They have said no, they've banned the sales of EV vehicles starting in 2035. The opposite, of course, of what California did.
I think that's a little extreme to ban the sales. I mean, just like, I think it's extreme to force you to participate, right? I think it's extreme to say we're not going to participate. It's America. It's your choice if you want to participate in most cases. But, you know, legislatures find a way around that. Does it make sense in Wyoming? No, right? It's not a very populated state, and it's like 100 miles to anything. So I don't even see where it would make sense. I think they're just making a statement going, we're farmers, we're cattle ranchers, we're this, we're that. We want nothing to do with your big city stuff.
That makes a lot of sense. It very much is political. And the older I've gotten, the more I've realized how little choices I do have in the political sense. So as far as recruiting goes, do you think dealerships will have better success attracting the current high school graduates or younger workers if they cater to that EV technology? Do you think it'd be important to recruiting?
I do believe that it's going to be important. As you know, as a matter of fact, I think I've told Russell before, you may have been there. So in my shop, I have my oldest technician is like 45 years old, right? Out of like 15 guys out there. And I have them all the way down to like 23, 24. Most of my shop is 2-year tech school graduates. There's a local tech school here called Northeast Technical, and most of them came through that school. Everybody here is like local, and a lot of them have been here a long time. But I'm encouraging the ones that are younger, that are not already master techs, I'm encouraging them to learn all they can about EV, to go online, YouTube videos. And you have, these guys grew up playing video games and simulators, you know, and online things and on their phones. And, you know, heck, they're not getting married and having kids. They're buying bigger gaming consoles and chairs and stuff. So that generation will embrace that kind of technology if you encourage them, right? And provide them the resources to be able to utilize it. And I don't think that somebody like my age, I'm 54, right? So I'm probably going to work till they make me quit, but it will be, I don't know that it'll be in my lifetime that we'll ever see it widespread adopted in an area like where I'm at. Now, I can't say the same for a big city, right? There may very well be 80% utilization of EV in highly concentrated areas, but there's a lot more spread out areas than the highly concentrated.
Yeah, and I would regret not asking you this since we touched on it. You're really good at recruiting for your service department. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, so I create an atmosphere of welcoming and embracing growth and individuality, right? I'm not afraid to tailor a work schedule, a pay plan, whatever it may be, because everybody has a different why, right? Finding your why or your motivation. We used to call it motivation. Now it's why. So, all right. So for you, right, obviously you're able to work from home and you have your children, right? So that makes it very attractive for you to work with Russell, right? I got texts that, maybe their wife works a certain schedule and they want to match her schedule, or they need to work opposite. Instead of coming in at 7 like the other guys, they come in at 9 because mama's working and they need to take the kids to school or whatever, or daycare. Okay, so come work 9 to 6. I do 4-day work weeks, right? I've been doing that since before it was a thing. And if somebody, I'm family focused, and put your family first. If your wife's sick and you stay home and take care of the kids, okay, we'll work around it, right? Because I always have 2 more people than I probably really need. But COVID taught me to have more people than I think I need, because people will call out or come up with an excuse not to come to work at the drop of a hat, right? Just because, I was at a party last weekend and this guy coughed across the room. And, now I heard 3 days later he's got COVID. So I better sit out and get tested in a couple of days. That was really happening during COVID. Not so much today, but that was happening then. And I think for people who are just looking for excuses not to work, I'm fortunate that the people here feel motivated and blessed. And when I put out an ad, I say, do you want a better quality of life? Do you want a 4-day work week? Do you want to make 15, 20, 25% more than anybody else in the area for the same job? Come see me, because that's what I offer.
Those are great selling points. And we do plan to put out some episodes down the road on recruiting. And I think a deep dive into that would be very worthwhile. So you may have touched on this a little bit, Shawn, but I just want to ask you flat out, if you had to guess, what's your outlook on EV? When is it going to take over the world, if it does?
I really believe that over the next couple of years, with all the development being put in by the big manufacturers, right? Like your big 3 in Detroit, and even like Hyundai's getting into it. Honda and Toyota, I don't think they're really sold on it. They're like coming out with like one model. But what I see happening is because of the force of the legislature from up top. We'll see how that works out now at the House of Representatives has changed. See what kind of, if it levels itself out. But I just think everybody's already invested so much into it. Over the next 2 to 4 years, you're going to see a multitude of EV models from every manufacturer. There's several brands that are switching over to all EV, right? They're smaller brands, but they're also maintaining them as a luxury market, because let's face it, it's going to take somebody that's making $100,000 a year to be able to afford these things, right? The average guy on the street is not going to be able to go out and buy a Cadillac EV. They can't buy a Tesla EV, right? Unless it's used. So they've also put themselves in a pigeonhole market, because there's no entry level point, shall we say. They're all expensive.
Right.
And so I think in your bigger, more concentrated cities, it's already happening right now in 2023. You're seeing a slow changeover, but it will accelerate for the next 2 or 3 years. And then I think you're going to see it plateau and eventually start to decline as manufacturers figure out, like we talked about earlier, that, hey, this is a train wreck. We don't have the infrastructure. We're running out of resources. What are we doing with all these batteries? How are we reclaiming and disposing of all the, there's a lot of long-term sustainable problems that they didn't think it through good. There's not an EV charging station on every corner. That's their number one problem right now. And who wants to spend an hour charging your car while you're on a 4-hour trip? I don't. Right. And I saw a video the other day where this guy was talking about it's a scam. He goes, I was traveling. I had to stop and charge my car. And he was holding up his receipt. I guess it was like a gas station type of thing. He paid like $40 and got 30 minutes worth of charge. I was like, what? And it was probably a diesel generator burning fossil fuels.
Probably. I've also heard too, in the electric vehicles, you could see where the nearest charging stations are. But when you get there, they could be not working.
Or there could be a long line.
Right. Oh, yeah. Oh yeah. You almost need a movie theater, a restaurant, and a bar so you can hang out while you get your car charged.
That's why I say with those kind of obstacles to overcome, I think we're looking at a 10-year lifespan, and then all of a sudden they're going to be on to the next thing. I think by the time we get to all this 2035 legislation, like California banning cars, Wyoming banning other kinds of cars and all these things, it's going to be a moot point. They're going to have moved on.
The lifespan of an EV vehicle is uncertain at this point, where a gas powered vehicle, I've had mine since 2005. It's a great car.
Oh, I'm driving a 7-year-old Tundra that I'm not planning on giving up anytime soon. Right. My wife likes to change cars every 3 years. I like to drive them until they die, and then I rebuild them and drive them some more.
Yeah, it's going to be hard to get people who are accustomed to that to change.
Yeah, the only way they're going to address the affordability issue is to make cheaper components, right? So what is that going to mean? If they're going to meet these EVA standards, they're going to have to build batteries that cost less. Guess what happens when you build smaller batteries? You get even less distance, right? You're going to be back to the Chevy Bolt days when they were able to go 100, 150 miles, one of the first electric cars, right? Just to make them affordable so people can meet manufacturing standards. That's going to just create even more and more problems.
Yeah, do you think, for the most part, leaving aside other arguments, EV is kind of driving an EV is more of a status symbol?
I do believe that. Yeah, I mean, who would have thought that Tesla was going to end up in the luxury car segment? I just look at it as an electric car. I don't think of Tesla as a luxury car. It's just another brand out there. But all of a sudden they're putting it in the same category as Lexus, Mercedes, and BMW.
So do you have any hard data on EVs that relate directly to the operation of your service department?
No data is data, right? I don't have one EV that comes into either of the 3 stores.
Yeah, that's a common thing I'm hearing is we really don't know. It's kind of a mystery at this point, unless you are in a Tesla.
Well, if you're in one of the forefront brands that's out there, right? Now, I will tell you, the Honda store over here in Bristol sells every used Tesla that they get their hands on, right? They buy them at auctions and stuff, bring them in, and they sell them. So I will tell you that people want them, no doubt about it. And the Acura and the Mazda store that's about 20 minutes south of my location, Acura, Mazda, and Honda are all coming out with their own EVs, but not till next year. So really, we're not, the brands I represent are not participating at this moment.
Well, now I'm going to have this question for you, and this relates to something that I hear Russell say a lot. Technology is meant to accelerate business, not create it. So this, like I said, it relates to technology more in general, but I'm kind of seeing the cyclical pattern in my mind. So do you foresee technology like EV or AI making great strides up until, let's say, 2035, and then causing us to lose our investment in people and customers, and have that circle back around to a de-evolution in technology and a resurgence back to that person-to-person, customer-oriented business?
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that to a point. I believe that people want to interact with people, right? So there's a certain amount of people that would love to buy, Carvana proved that there's a certain amount of people that like to buy on cars online and not do anything. But they had a very poor business model and they overpaid for everything and they're suffering for it now, right? So, the old saying of that pigs get fat and hogs get slaughtered. I think that's what will happen to a lot of people, that you can't put all your eggs in one basket, right? And technology is very useful. It's transformed many lives. It's extended people's lives. It's helped people live better lives. But still, somebody had to create that. Somebody has to manufacture it. Somebody has to service it, right? Henry Ford invented the production line, right? And it was all people, all hands on. Nowadays, if you go into a car plant, you have maybe 1/10 as many people and a lot of automation going on, but it still requires people. So we'll just continue to evolve and adapt. I think there's always room for improvement. But do I think that the world will be taken over by electronics? No.
Love hearing it. Love hearing it. AI is a big topic right now. A lot of people are, AI is going to take your job, and all of these things are going to happen. Electric vehicles or self-driving. Everything's going to be different. And I was just wondering what your take was on that.
AI is a whole different thing to me, right? So rather than just the electronics that involved. I mean, right? Where would we be without Google Maps, right? I mean, heck, half the people can't leave their driveway without punching in their destination. Because heaven forbid they actually know how to get somewhere. When was the last time you saw somebody look at a paper map?
Years.
Right. But AI, there's some really neat stuff out there with AI. So, it's really hard these days. You think about, like, for people that have BDCs or call centers or whatever, and they're trying to get somebody to pay somebody because it has to be affordable. So if I need 4 people and I can only budget like $15 an hour, by the time you pay benefits and everything else, I'm going to spend like 15 grand a month, 12 to 15 grand a month to staff a small call center. Now, if you get a company, there's Brook AI out there, Stella AI, that are big in the car business. And I've actually had the pleasure of meeting both of the people that actually started those businesses and running them. I think that they're on to a very useful piece, but it's a piece because it still has to connect to a live body. But if somebody just wants to call in and make an oil change appointment or go online and ask some simple questions, I think it's going to be great stuff. But will AI ever be able to answer a complicated question? That will remain to be seen.
Yeah, I've experimented a little bit with Chat GPT, and the question has to be very detailed and very specific for it to really give you what you're looking for. Apart from EV, what are some of the biggest concerns in the service department as you look into the future?
Well, I believe that having quality people trained and staffed, and you're constantly growing your next person. I'm very concerned for a lot of stores and people that I interact with, as people like myself get older, right? If we're not responsible enough to be training our replacements, you're going to have a bunch of people come down the road that don't know anything about the actual business end of it, right? So I've learned piece by piece, right? I was a very good advisor, good with people, right? If you're good with people skills, that's half the battle. But it took me a long time to grasp and learn the financial side of it. And then I had to learn the people skills with the employees, right? That was something I sucked at for a long time. So maybe I've gone overboard in this stage of my career with focusing on my people, because I realized that I was just a crappy manager of people when I first became a manager. But the long-term sustainability for us is going to be bringing up and properly equipping that next generation. That's why you see me posting with my younger technicians, my younger advisors. I'm constantly looking to hire people at entry-level positions and grow them in mentoring, either from mentors in the shop, from myself, other advisors in the office, because that is the future of our business. I don't care how electronic we get, how many EVs we get, how much gas we get, hybrid, it's still going to take people. And if we're not growing our people, there's going to be a big shortage in our industry. Like everybody says there's a tech shortage. I wouldn't know, because I grow my own. I start them in Express and weed out the ones that aren't going to work out and concentrate on the rest. I've never had a tech shortage ever since I became in management, going on 10 years now.
It sounds like you have a great methodology going on, Shawn. You've got it running so well oiled.
I wish. We all hit those speed bumps. We all have those self-doubting moments, but self-doubt is an invitation to give up before you've given your best effort and researched all your resources, right? I'm not afraid to admit I don't know. If I want some guidance, I can call Russell, right? I'm like, Russell, dude, what do you think about this? Because I don't know, I'm stuck. I got a buddy named Joe Chambers that runs like 5 stores up in Chicago, right? I can call Joe because he's probably been there, done that, run into that problem before. Michael Barich, right? Michael Barich is a friend of mine. I can call Michael. Michael is very successful, very smart guy, right? I can shoot. I have different resources. Everybody has a different skill set that they're really good at. A lot of us that are fixed ops directors or, group directors or whatever you want to call it, we're good at a lot of things, but we're all pretty good at least, we're excellent. We're better than 99% of the others at least one thing. So having that group of resources for me to call and go, hey, you know what, this guy knows the financial side of it like nobody's business. And I cannot figure out why I can't get this number to match. I'm calling this guy. Or, you know what, my marketing is sucking. I'm not getting people in the door. I'm going to call Michael Barich, right? Michael's a great marketer. So this guy's got great people skills and I'm not getting through to this person, so I'm not afraid to reach out because that's how we grow. We have an SDL program on Sunday mornings that Russell attends, I attend. There's probably about regularly 40, 50 people on there. And you're talking about some of the smartest people you ever met in this business, all getting together on a Sunday morning because we're investing in ourselves and each other to grow. And we're all can rely on each other. So having that mentor group and that relationship and that outreach, it's huge.
And it sounds like you guys really work your way through different issues and really support each other in various ways.
Everybody on the program is an open door to the other members, if you will. I mean, and it's not a closed membership by any means. There's no secret handshake or sign. If you want to join, you just reach out to Eric Duranga and or Joe Chambers, and they'll send you a link. You just got to be willing to get up on Sunday morning. Depends on where you're at. For me, it's easy. It's 8 o'clock Eastern time, but them guys are doing this show live from Chicago at 7 a.m., right? And there's people on the West Coast. There's people in Mountain Time that are jumping on there. Kudos to them. You got Lamont Harris gets up at 4:30 every Sunday morning to get on there. But I've watched him grow from a basic service manager. Now he's running multiple stores, right? And I mean, so that's the kind of things that can be inspired when you put in the work.
It's really a great resource for anyone who is looking to just get to the next level and be their best version of themselves.
If you're not investing in yourself, how can you invest in your people?
Now that we get close to wrapping up here, Shawn, what are your closing thoughts on fixed operations and EV? I'm going to let you have this final word in this super session.
Sure. I mean, the only thing that I'm going to say is that we have to stay open-minded. Sometimes I come across as closed-minded, and there was a guy that commented on some post on LinkedIn that said he never took me as a forward-thinking person. I readily admit that, right? But it doesn't mean that because I know what works and I know what continues to work, and I know investing in your people is number one. If you don't have people, you don't have anything. Right? But to invest in your people, you have to be willing to evolve and learn and keep them going. Because two things I learned. One was that when I got outside of myself and invested in other people, my life got better, right? And I know Russell will back me up on that. The other thing that I learned was that once I help my people achieve their hopes, dreams, and goals and their why, it makes my life a lot easier, right? So just keep learning, keep evolving, never stop investing in yourself, because by investing in yourself, you'll invest in your people, whether it's EV, whether it's hydrogen, whether they invent flying cars and all of this goes out the door, right? One thing's for sure, the car business always evolves.
Well said, Shawn. So thank you so much for joining us on this session. And thank you to all of you who've made it this far. We hope you learned something new today. Keep in touch with us. Visit fixedopsmarketing.com/FixedOpsInstitute. We have more super sessions to come.
For me, it almost engaged me or grabbed excitement for visiting a website. There's so many options and almost so many ways that I can choose to repair my car that day when I come in for service. Many of our guests will save the check engine light, the free brake inspection, and our oil change coupon. Then our BDC will follow up with those guests to make sure they've scheduled or if they want to schedule. Most FixedOPS websites are boring, maybe 3 coupons. Ours lets you know that we have financing available, we have oil change packages available, all the diagnostic that we do for free.
Do you think it does a good job at educating the typical everyday consumer?
I feel especially on like the 4-wheel alignment and on the additives, really lets them get a clear picture of why it's needed and the benefit of it. By far, this tool is one of the best tools I've ever had the opportunity to work with.
Find out why we're described as the best decision ever made by FixedOPS directors. Visit FixedOpsMarketing.com/FixedOpsInstitute.